Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone who has tuned in today on this very, very important webinar that we are having, a Twitter chat with four of the leading international players and experts in the field of clean energy, energy efficiency. It's really something that we are very, very proud about, that we have such an eminent panelist with us to talk about what the world is facing as far as energy is concerned. All of us, any part of the world, we all are seeing what is happening across the world. We are seeing countries finding a new normal in terms of working, in terms of the way things are going on, the way energy is being used. Everything has changed in a matter of 2 or 3 years. And how will this world recover, revive post this crisis is something that we are yet to understand and fully realize. We have seen how things have dramatically changed in what people say a BC and a AC era, BC being before Corona, which was only 3 months ago. How will things fan out? How will offices work? How will the energy systems react? There are many questions that we still don't have credible answers to. And to talk about all this and to see what is it that needs to be done in this world, where only one thing, if you ask me, has really benefited all of us: the clean air that we are breathing whichever part of the world we are, because of the lockdowns that has been enforced.
So you have to,
Can we sustain it?
Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sir, this hadn't gone live. We're just going to go live. I'm sorry. I will give you a cue as when you can restart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I will give you a cue as soon as we get on. Right, sir.
My apologies. There's some technical issues we are trying to resolve. Just hold on for a minute. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the whichever part of the world. It's a pleasure for everyone who has joined us on this live Twitter chat on a very important topic, and I have four outstanding global leaders of energy joining us with me today. But before that, let me just very quickly brief as to what is it that we are looking at, what are we going to discuss in this 1 hour chat. The world is going through times that it has never seen before. The new normal is something which is people are finding now difficult to realize that we lived in a world which was so vastly different. We have things that have never happened in the past, which are now becoming normal for us. The only good thing that at least we see in India, which has 14 of the top most polluting cities, top 20 most polluting cities in the world, is that we breathe clean air because of the lockdown. But things in virtually all sectors have changed dramatically in the last 2 or 3 months. Now, joining me today is a very, very eminent panel that I have, and let me take a couple of minutes to introduce the panel. To begin with, His Excellency Munther Mohammed bin Shekhar, he is the Director General of RAK UAE. Thank you very much, Excellency, for taking your time out. Under his leadership, the RAK municipality has witnessed remarkable growth and has been at the forefront of adopting latest technology and providing best services to the citizens who reside in this municipality. Very, very warm welcome to you, Excellency, for accepting this invitation. Let me also introduce the second panelist, His Excellency Ali Al Jassim. He is the CEO of Etihad Energy Services, which is a super ESCO of the Emirates of Dubai, and is playing a vital role in making Dubai as one of the most sustainable cities of the region and also of the world. He is also the chairman of Emirates Green Building Council and the board member of Emirates Environmental Group and World Green Energy Organization. Welcome, Excellency, to this discussion. I would also like to welcome Mr. Andrea Di Gregorio, who is the Director of the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office in Emirates of Ras Al Khaimah, UAE, with the mandate to support the development of Emirates towards lower energy intensity and a higher share of renewables in the generation mix. He has more than 15 years of experience in the energy sector in Europe and Middle East, and has worked for oil and gas majors and leading utilities in the field of strategy, operations, improvement and energy efficiency. Welcome, Mr. Andrea. And finally, colleague and a dear friend, Hugh Richmond. He's the CEO of ADINA and a part of the ESL group since 2018. And ADINA is the official distributor of MWM gas engines for UK and Ireland. Hugh has more than 25 years of experience in a variety of markets, literally around the world, and in the area of energy efficiency, clean energy, in markets like Eastern Europe, Mexico, South America, China, Africa, just to name a few. But before I get into my panel, it's really a privilege to have His Excellency Director General of RAK Municipality. Can I request Excellency to formally inaugurate this session? We'll come back to Soumya, if you can remove this. We'll come back to this to formally inaugurate this panel discussion and also give his vision and guidance as we move ahead. Excellency, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Ras Al Khaimah Municipality to everyone attend in this webinar from the Middle East and India and other parts of the world. My name is Munther Mohammed bin Shekhar, and I am the Director General of the Municipality of Ras Al Khaimah, one of the 7 Emirates of the UAE. Since its establishment in 1959, the municipality has led the development of Ras Al Khaimah, especially in the city planning, real estate development, and public health and safety. Ras Al Khaimah is engaged on a long-term journey in the sustainability. We have established in 2017 a new office REAM, the new office REAM to drive energy efficiency and renewable energy program in supporting to competitiveness of our economy. Our energy efficiency and renewable strategy 2040 target 30% energy saving, 20% water saving, and 20% contribution of renewable energy in the generation mix by 2040. All of the programs of the strategy are already active with multiple projects. Those include new green building retrofit in energy management initiatives, efficient street light, water reuse, and efficient irrigation, solar project, energy from waste, and other. My colleague and area, executive director of REAM, will provide you with more information on those projects. The COVID-19 pandemic required us to prioritize some of our capital intensive project. However, it's also paved the way for new opportunity. For example, we have accelerated in the launch of major projects in the field of energy management, where all government entities are expected to bring cost saving through energy efficiency. Overall, while short-term plans are being adjusted, our long-term commitment to the objectives of the strategy and its target remaining strong. This webinar also touches upon the role of natural gas in energy transition. Ras Al Khaimah is an industrial hub for the UAE and Middle East region. Civil industrial facilities currently use natural gas or other fossil fuel for power generation. We believe that natural gas can play a key role in the energy transition by replacing more expensive and polluting fossil fuel, and by supporting projects in the field of renewable energy. We are excited and honored to participate in this webinar, and we thank EESL for hosting it. We're looking forward to fruitful discussion, and thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you for really setting the tone for the discussion that we will have over the next just less than 1 hour. And let me, the main points that I take away is the municipal body has taken about 30% savings in energy, water, and also a similar target for renewable energy. Green buildings, which is something extremely important as we look at the world moving forward, is something that you have already enshrined in the work that you are doing. And most importantly, which I really liked, that in the pandemic, energy management has become something extremely important. And another very important point that I take away from your talk is that your long-term commitments for strategic goals that you laid out for renewable energy, energy efficiency, and water savings remains unaffected in this pandemic. This is a major thing which I think not many have alluded to. So with this very good setting of the whole thing by His Excellency Director General, let me just very quickly mention about what are the energy transitions that are being talked about in these uncertain times. And we have picked up from the International Energy Agency's outlook that was released just a few weeks ago. And let me just very quickly talk about this, because this will feed into what our expert panelists will tell us. First of all, the countries who have had full lockdown have experienced a 25% decline in energy demand. Wherever there is a partial lockdown, as per the International Energy Agency, it's about 18%. Oil demand has been very strongly hit, and of course, because of the fact that there's curtailment of mobility and aviation. The gas demand has been hit rather moderately, if you see. The impact of this pandemic on gas is expected to be just about 2%. And perhaps renewables, something like His Excellency Director General also mentioned, renewables are the only form of energy that have posted a growth in the demand and is likely to carry on as we turn to the rest of this year. And what International Energy Agency based out in Paris says, that energy efficiency as a full first fuel holds so much of promise in energy transitions. We heard His Excellency Director General talk about the fact energy management is becoming important just because we want to save cost as much as we want. Be he talked about green buildings and countries like India, where 70% of the infrastructure that will stand in 2030 is yet to be built. If I have green buildings, I create new jobs, and therefore this is something which the as I said, the International Energy Agency is also mentioning. So, with this background, let me turn to His Excellency Ali Al Jassim, who is the CEO of Etihad, and he has been one of the Etihad Super ESCO has been one of the most talked about Super ESCO along with EESL for a while. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us. Just your thoughts on what you see is the general global outlook with the International Energy Agency is presenting. What is Etihad ESCO's plan to do things in UAE and other places that you operate on? Your Excellency, Al Jassim.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be in this webinar among such excellencies and experts. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. Etihad Energy Services is a company, Dubai government-owned company that is looking after renewable energy in Dubai and energy efficiency in Dubai. Now, of course, the pandemic has affected everyone globally in terms of affected the supply, affected the demand, affected the economics, affected the movement and the consumption as well. No doubt, it has affected some countries with full lockdown, where other countries with semi-lockdown on certain measures. Now, we here in the UAE and specifically in Dubai, we measured the impact of COVID and how we could recover in terms of energy efficiency from the pandemic and the remaining 6 months to come till end of 2020. No doubt, again, everyone was affected. Our impact on the bottom line number was 50 to 60%. Now, of course, the government also encouraged the reduction of and the support of individuals and account owners by giving an additional reduction of 10% in the supply of electricity. Now, overall, of course, the numbers will be hit around 50 to 60%. We are trying to reduce that 50%. I think we are in a very good position than others where they have much more than 50 to 60%. And I think we are in a very solid and good situation where we are talking about a reduction of the positive numbers rather than coming down below the zero and becoming negative number. That is the impact in Dubai and in the UAE overall. I hope I answered your question. So,
yeah, thank you. I have a follow-up question. That how do you see the role of energy efficiency? I know energy efficiency has been a resource which has been talked about for a lot of years by lots of people, including in India and outside. How do you see a change in the way people will perceive energy efficiency during this pandemic and as we get out of the pandemic? And how do you feel this could support economic recovery as we move ahead and the lockdown ends in various parts of the world?
Your Excellencies, I think in the old days before the pandemic, for a couple of years, oil demand, oil consumption was the most important thing. There are many sectors, beside the commercial, industrial, the gold, oil. Now, when we talk about oil, the best second alternative in the opposite direction is efficiency. Let's say efficiency in lifestyle, efficiency in electricity, efficiency. So that's the opposite direction. Yeah. I think before the pandemic, people were hearing about it, people were talking about it, but it was not as essential and as a necessity, I would say, close to a necessity before the pandemic. During the pandemic, it became a necessity. People looked for the best alternatives for efficiency. And the first that comes across the mind is energy efficiency. Yeah. So I think pandemic had a positive impact beside making us work differently. It also made energy efficiency and efficiency in lifestyle as a necessity and as a lifestyle rather than just a will whether to do it or not. So it has changed our perception towards that, and it has changed our knowledge, where people started going deeper into the knowledge and knowing how they can do and change their lifestyle with an efficient lifestyle.
Now, very important points that this has brought to the fore, that energy efficiency is indeed a resource, and it's not just two or three entities and agencies talking and doing energy efficiency. It's a lifestyle changes in efficiency that I know you have to leave early, and therefore I would not like to miss the opportunity of staying with you slightly longer and asking your opinion about, I mean, many countries, particularly there, we have seen in India and many other parts of the world, there have been massive economic recovery packages that have been unveiled for the energy sector, particularly the power sector in India. In India, it's about $14 billion that have been earmarked and released by the government to the utilities which are facing a massive financial crisis. What are the 2-3 suggestions that you will provide to the governments, particularly Government of India and the utilities, in terms of usage of clean energy and energy efficiency, and what can be done to ensure that they continue and they are kind of COVID-free, as we may like to say moving forward?
Your Excellency, thank you for that question. Now, the role of the government is very important and very essential. If we talk about private sector playing the role alone, the impact will not be great and massive compared to when the government is involved in terms of the cycle of the economy and the revolving of the economical cycle. When government comes into the role and into the picture, then the numbers become enormous. When there is a partnership between government and private sector, then the revolving of the economical cycle will become much smoother and much faster and greater to return in a faster pace and in a shorter time. Now, each government has looked at the economical situation and the impact, and of course, they have supported. In the UAE, the United Arab Emirates government have supported different sectors, of course, not only the energy sector, with 100 billion dirhams support, economical support to cover certain areas like commercial areas, energy, I would say the trade, external trade, retail, tourism, perhaps, the transportation maybe, and the SMEs where local individuals are involved and they benefit as well. In Dubai, 1.5 billion dirhams have been dedicated as an economical support for also similar sectors. Now, again, going back, without the government support, without the involvement of the government, now the government could support financially, they could also support in legislative and in policy making. For example, during the pandemic, there were lockdowns, there were business outages, there was closed down. The government can regulate policies and frameworks where deferral of payments could happen, where extra time could be given without extra cost, without interest, without paying extra cost. Here, everybody will win in terms of deferring the payments. The people will have an extra time so they can recover some of the money and arrange for payments. The revolving of the economical cycle will give them more chance so they can pay and finance extra projects. Policies and financing come together with the government support, then they can make things happen and come back in a faster pace.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellent thing. Public-private partnership, the healing touch that the government has to do, while at the same time making sure there is enough policies and regulations to make sure that the rebound of growth comes back. We might come back to you, Excellency, if you're still around, but let me, at this juncture, turn to Andrea. Andrea, energy efficiency is something which both the excellencies have very vocally talked about, something that the international community is also now figuring out. Can you just highlight and elaborate as to what are the energy efficiency works that you're currently doing in the RAK that you have championed, and something what you feel could also be taken up by others, including people in India and also in the UK? Mr. Andrea.
Thank you. Take the chance to just say that I'm honored to be part of this panel and to participate in this discussion with such prominent.
Sorry, you have to be slightly louder. We can't hear you properly.
Regarding your question, energy efficiency, I think His Excellency Ali Al Jassim has already mentioned, has in this moment a window of unique opportunity. Investments in energy efficiency are relevant not only because they allow lower cost positions over the long run, but also in this moment of the COVID pandemic, they are important because they are a way to stimulate the economy. Energy efficiency investments are normally, energy efficiency projects are normally delivered to local supply chains in the construction industry, in the facility management industry. And therefore, investing in energy efficiency means not only saving money in the consumption, but also injecting money in the economy in the form of jobs, the capabilities, and basically making the economy circulate more. Now, this is also, there was a recent report from the International Energy Agency that you mentioned, which a couple of weeks ago they issued a sustainable recovery plan where they also shared these views. They basically, their analysis suggests that there will be an impact on the global economy of about 1.1% per year by making energy-focused investments. And I would say this is, I think this is shared by Ras Al Khaimah, shared by UAE. General, actually, this year has been quite a remarkable year in terms of developments in this field. In Abu Dhabi Power Corporation in April achieved the lowest ever recorded bid for a solar project of 1.35 cents per kilowatt hour. There was in March the UAE first reactor for the nuclear power plant came into operations. In Ras Al Khaimah, Barjil, the green building regulations of Ras Al Khaimah became mandatory starting at the end of January. And this month also there were the guidelines for sustainable communities in Ras Al Khaimah are moving now to a pilot phase where they will be tested in upcoming communities. So there is confirmation of trust in the energy efficiency, as His Excellency Munder Shekhar was mentioning. Ras Al Khaimah remains committed to the targets, even in these challenging times. We keep our targets and we will keep being measured against the same numbers. What we will need to do, I think, is and what we are doing, is not much changing our ambition, but changing the way we want to get there. For example, efforts will increase in the field of energy management. Are increasing already in the field of energy management, where a major project was launched with all the government entities of Ras Al Khaimah to achieve savings in the very short run and therefore support the local economy. There are investments in infrastructure, in electric vehicle charging stations that are being confirmed. There are investments, capex being placed, even in these challenging circumstances, in the retrofit program of Ras Al Khaimah. So all these elements of commitment are confirmed with a more focus on measures that are related to behaviors, I would say, so energy management. Also quick wins like offered by the opportunities under the current circumstances. So for example, the lower occupancy in buildings that is resulting from remote work, from new ways of working, and also from restrictions that have been put in place, are offering the opportunity of quick wins through, for example, shut-off programs. For example, I mean, the floor above me in the municipality is now empty and shut down. So we basically reorganize ourselves to save energy, like many other government entities in Ras Al Khaimah.
Thank you. I think it's a very good roundup of what you're doing in energy efficiency, and again, reiterating the fact that His Excellency, the Director General mentioned that the targets are being met. You are looking at newer ways to make sure that you don't slip on the targets, which are virtues as far as the RAK municipal body is concerned. I'll come back to you. Let me turn to Hugh Richmond. And Hugh, you have had plenty of experience in virtually across the globe. What, in your opinion, countries like the UK are facing as far as the energy challenge is concerned, and how can energy efficiency and maybe clean energy help in a good economic revival of the economy? Hugh.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just as a matter of interest, during the lockdown, the UK suffered nearly a 20% reduction on energy demand. But during the lockdown, it was quite an interesting time. The weather was quite favourable over the last 2 or 3 months. And if you actually look at the renewable mix in the UK, I think for the first time ever, we got to nearly 50, I think we got up to about 51% of the power generated in the UK actually came from renewables. And that was from solar and wind, which was quite incredible, considering that, sort of 20 years ago, 30-40% of our power, maybe 50% of our power came from coal. I can honestly say now, I think we've gone now nearly 2 months without using any coal-fired power stations in the UK. So the mix of power in the UK is on average, about 31% renewables, 23% nuclear, 35% gas, 7% biomass. So there's been massive changes in the energy mix in the UK. It's been quite phenomenal. And it goes back to way back 20 odd years ago when the government kind of created the competition within the energy market, and was sort of led by sort of 5 or 6 big major electricity companies. But the interesting thing that's happening now, whilst it's all good news that we're producing more renewable power, what you're actually finding now is that the more renewable power we have into the system, i.e. solar and wind, we're starting to get imbalances in the grid network due to lack of inertia within the system. So over the last 3 or 4 years, EDINA as a company has been focusing on a decentralized approach to the UK energy market, and that is, rather than having sort of 5 or 6 or 7 or large power stations dotted around the UK, we've now gone down to more of a mix of 20 meg here, 20 meg there, 30 meg there, 15 meg. So it tend to be decentralized, smaller power stations embedded into the gas generation network at 11 kV, using predominantly, originally started with diesel engines, but air quality, etc., was an issue. It's now very much driven by the gas business. And EDINA, the company themselves, we're getting close to 400 megawatts of these decentralized, power plants. So whilst it's all good news, the renewable energy mix changing and more towards renewable, it does create problems for every country. And well, certainly it has in the UK. It will eventually, as you move towards a more renewable, sustainable environment. that you have to have this balancing mechanism. And this balancing mechanism is basically to be, these engines and facilities are called upon on a regular, sort of during peaking periods. But the reason we've got to where we have is that it's government policy. You have to make it attractive for people to invest in renewable energy and energy efficiency schemes. In the UK, it started way back 2000 with non-fossil fuel obligations, and there was a CDM carbon mechanism, then there was a renewable obligation certificates, renewable heat incentive, feed-in tariffs, etc. There's now good quality. I mean, our business specialises very much on CHP. And just to explain to the listeners, CHP is where you actually generate power on a facility and use the waste heat from the engine for, for either chilling or for heating. Certainly heating in the UK, UAE does not require heating, so it'll be more for air conditioning. So it's tri-generation. India is tri-generation, but the principles are the same. You get a situation where you get up to 90% of the energy value of the gas, because the conversion of gas to electricity, as you all know, is 42%, 43%. This nice balance. But as I say, we have got to where we have in the UK, and the market is very much driven a lot by government policy and incentives to make it happen.
Thank you. I think 2 or 3 very important points, which I just very quickly want to summarize. And since we still have His Excellency Al-Jassim, I'll pose this question. As Hugh says, the moment renewable energy increases that he just mentioned in UK, while it's a green and clean energy, the fact is there are problems of balancing that start to come up. And as he says, UK has used natural gas, decentralized based gas stations, all dotted across the UK to do the balancing part. Your Excellency, how do you see, given the new thrust on renewable energy being much more, how do you see the role of natural gas in this energy transition that we are seeing, not just in the UAE, but many other countries like India, where the renewable energy penetration is going up? Your Excellency, before you leave, your thoughts on this.
Thank you. Now, based on international reports, one of the reports was the International Energy Agency report. For UAE, the natural gas was between 80 to 90% of the, I would say, energy supply. For oil, it was around, I would say, between 5 and 10%. And for coal, it was 3 to 5%. For wind and solar, a few years back, it was 0. Today, that 0 is increasing slowly, gradually, and in a steady, where the natural gas is decreasing slowly. So this is the trend we are seeing in most of the countries. This is the trend here in the United Arab Emirates. The solar energy, renewable energy dependency is increasing. In Dubai specifically, I would say the solar connected power was more than 170 megawatts so far. So, and that was in a year and a half, close to 2 years only, to have 170 megawatts connected. It's a massive achievement for such size country, you know.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Let me at this point in time turn to Andrea. And Andrea, you heard Hugh Richmond talk about combined heat and power using these decentralized gas engines in facilities like hospitals, malls, generating electricity and utilizing the heat, which is otherwise wasted for heating. A similar thing is applicable in India, which is called tri-generation, where the waste heat is recovered and used for cooling, and also it produces hot water systems. How do you see interventions like tri-generation, decentralized generation plus cooling? Do you see a market of this in the UAE? And also, is there need for regulatory interventions if these projects were to prosper moving ahead?
I think you touched upon most of the relevant points. Now, regarding heat recovery and regeneration, Ras Al Khaimah has some good examples of this. The industrial sector comprises about 45% of the total consumption of Ras Al Khaimah. There are important industries in the field of mining, of cement, of glass, pharmaceuticals. And many of them have leveraged these opportunities, particularly the cement historically, recovering heat and using it for power generation with steam turbines. And this is an important source of efficiency. In fact, the cost of energy for those industries are much below the cost of energy provided by the utilities. The same thing applies in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, where there are important examples of heat recovery and efficiency in local generation. I would say that this is a major area of opportunity, not only for the industrial sector, but also for the commercial sector in those areas where solar can be a big component of generation. I think His Excellency Ali, but he didn't mention, but the Etihad ESCO has done some of the most remarkable projects in solar energy. The example of My Dubai is probably one of the largest, if not the largest, on-site solar plant in the world, distributed generation plant in the world. And so there are massive opportunities now in this field. UAE has a different regulatory landscape. Each emirate more or less got organized in its own ways. There are some emirates who started relatively early on this. Ras Al Khaimah is still engaged in a regulatory effort done by the Ministry of Energy and IWA, which hopefully will soon regulate the generation from distributed solar and distributed, I would say in general, distributed generation, allowing entities to connect to the grid. Here, while local grids are possible, we still believe in systems where the central grid, the national grid, can provide a lot of support for energy security and continuity. Therefore, yes, we like local generation, on-site generation, but also in combination with the possibility to connect to the grid. And this aspect needs to be further regulated.
Thank you, Andrea. And before I turn to Hugh, let me mention and thank more than 1,000 people who are watching this live, and it's all really want to listen to the views of the expert that I have on the table, and they're growing every single minute. Hugh, this whole debate, and of course, as far as the UK is concerned, the UK is a bit ahead of India in terms of the energy transition's journey towards renewable energy. There's always been a debate about a gigawatt size scale gas plant on a distributed level that you just mentioned in your talk. What do you think is the most optimal way of integrating renewable energy as we move ahead? What has been the experience in UK been so far? And what do you recommend for a country like India, which is on its journey to increase the share of renewables? Hugh, you are on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I think it's interesting how the UK market has evolved over the last several years, as I mentioned, from the centralised to decentralised approach. Everybody's clearly got an incentive and a good, what do you call it? There's a lot of driving forces against, for encouraging renewable energy. As I say, the UK, we have the wind and we have the solar. I think there's a balance to be had, because at the end of the day, the sun always doesn't shine, the wind doesn't always blow. So it's about reliability and resilience in the system, and having a nice mix and a balance. The other advantages, of course, of a decentralised system, like we're now heading more towards in the UK, is that you've also got ability to, it's also more efficient because you're not having transmission losses. You're not pulling power from long distances and large cables, and you tend to be dealing with the power requirements at a local level. So again, there's energy efficiency and energy savings in that you've not got transmission losses, etc. I'm increasingly asked to look now, in some of my smaller 10, 20 megawatt plants to have what they refer to as hybrid systems. So you basically have your wind, turbine, you have your solar panels, you have your gas engines there for the resilience. You have also the situation on wind turbines where you have a gas engine alongside it, where in the evening times when power's not in as great a demand, it's the wind is there to charge the batteries at times when power prices are low in the market. So I'm increasingly looking at a whole interesting combination of sort of gas with solar, with wind, with battery. Battery technology is something that's come to the fore in the last couple of years. It's something that Edina as a company is looking at very much. That tends to be in our market under what's called fast frequency reserve, because the frequency of the power gets unstable. So power can instantly rectify the issues with frequency. So it's all about keeping an open mind, and it's about having this resilience, having this ability to react quickly to demand. And when the demand's not there, you simply just turn the power off. It's flexibility as well as resilience. It's the key to the system in order to have the optimum combination of different energy sources.
Wonderful. Flexibility, resilience, balance is what I hear from Hugh. A very interesting question has come, and I would like to pose this same question to all the three panelists. What can we do to take the discussions of energy efficiency from the shop floor to the boardroom? Starting with you, His Excellency Al Jassim. From shop floor to boardroom.
Thank you. Before I answer that question, I just want to comment back on the tri-generation and renewable energy. There is no doubt that the renewable energy has a positive impact on the supply side. That is no doubt. But again, you need to look at the geophysical, I would say the regional position of that country, the GDP, population, the policies. And when you move into renewable system, I would give it as an example like quality back in the 80s when quality started. People had a different pace into implementing quality. It was not unified across the globe. So the same for renewable energy use. Policies also and regulations have to be in parallel with the implementation. You cannot just say, yes, we will implement without having the right policies, regulations. Without considering your neighboring, I would say, geopolitical situation. So all these have an impact on the use of renewable energy. The impact, the positive impact, again, no doubt, yeah. But there are other, I would say, reasons and I would say impacts that one region or one country will look at. Now, going back to Your Excellency's question, if you may repeat the question again. So
the question is, energy efficiency has been talked about on the shop floor of a factory. What needs to be done so that it starts to be discussed in the boardroom of the company?
Your Excellency, energy efficiency, I would give it as an example as two pieces of a stick where you want to put them together. The project and the financing of the project. Now, around these two pieces comes other secondary, I would say, elements that you need to add. Besides having the project, implementing the project, and financing the project, there are many, many other things. Like, for example, you need to build the capacity. You need to create the market. You need to train the people. You need to make the society aware of energy efficiency, the values, the need, the essential, the positive, the benefits. So it is not just one solution, one mold that we come, put it on the table. This mold will work out for every company or every country or every region. No, it is a set of solutions that you can put together, similar to financing one project. It's not always the same financing solution exactly repeated from one project to another. It is the set of, I would say, solutions grouped together to make one big solution into that company. You cannot repeat energy efficiency or efficiency projects over and over. Each project is a standalone and a unique project. This is what I think personally, and this is what I believe.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellent thoughts that it is no one size fit all. There has to be a combination of many things, including financing, which is one part of it, project structuring. Andrea, I mean, now we are at the tail end of this session, and we have a couple of the other question that has come up, which I wanted to pose to Andrea. What are the 3 best practices that India can learn from what you have done, A, in your municipal body, and B, in UAE in general? 3 best practices. Andrea.
I would say something that is a very good approach in UAE, and it is quite common across the Emirates, is the fact that all of them engaged in comprehensive strategies. You see behind me, this is the representation of our strategy. It's basically a combination of programs where each program is led by a government entity assigned as a program owner. And if you take the programs all together, they address all the sources of energy and all the main users of energy. The residential, the commercial, the industrial, both from an asset standpoint and also from a consumption behavior. So I think one of the things that is, I think, very unique of this region, you don't find this in everywhere, no? Where in many other countries you will find sometimes very specific approaches to some problems. But rarely you find a very comprehensive strategy driven by a centralized entity where everybody reports to and where everybody feels, guided from. This is one element. I would say something that is also unique here. Consider the UAE is a country which historically is, and even today, is where the oil economy, the oil and gas economy, is a fundamental element of the economy. Even in these circumstances of availability of oil and of low energy prices, because in the end, I mean, the local energy prices compared to a global benchmark are generally lower, at least lower than Western economies. Even in these circumstances, energy efficiency is kept as a high priority topic. Sustainability and energy efficiency are elements of investment and this tells us that of the magnitude of the opportunity and of the, I would say, of the far vision of the leadership here on the evolution of the local economy, taking say energy efficiency as a lever of competitiveness of the economy over the long run. There are some, of course, in all this, there are things that need to be, I mean, we are at the beginning of the journey. All these efforts here have started probably 10, 15 years ago, so later than other economies. So we are in a journey and we are taking progressive steps. Now, one element that I would say that in here probably we should address, and it is part of our roadmap of things that we are working on, is the topic of green finance. green finance is now probably the main, the main new thing that is coming up in terms of enabler of these kinds of projects. Initially, the efforts were, I think, quite light in the past. They started with the support to retrofit and to renewable energy in the Western world. But more recently, this has become more important. Barclays, Green Finance, Green Solutions, BNP Paribas, E.ON in France with the green mortgages, energy efficient mortgages action plan in Europe. There are a number of banks involved in it. In the current situation, especially with the COVID pandemic, having the chance to channel investments with a strong financial vehicle can help can be a real game changer in accelerating the deployment of these projects. It is an area where we are working on, especially on the financing mechanism side, something that we have innovated recently. Maybe could be an example for other countries. Probably not for India, because I mean, for India with ESL, you have already had a structure of implementation of finance which is more centralized than other places. What we have done here, for example, we have worked on pooling of resources. In participating to energy efficiency projects, what happens sometimes, especially when you have complex government, you have many entities in the government, you end up in situations where each entity struggles in finding financial elements or approvals, or even approvals for budget and approval for projects, which slow down implementation. What we have done in Ras Al Khaimah is actually pooling resources. So we are doing projects in a centralized way. Examples, we are doing a retrofit project for the entire government of Ras Al Khaimah, including more than 20 entities, where a bid, a tender was issued for all the retrofit of all the buildings of the government. The same thing we are doing for energy management. It's a project supported by the Department of Finance of Ras Al Khaimah, where the entire government is addressed at the same time. And this unlocks a lot of decisions, makes decisions much easier and faster.
Thank you, Andrea. I think the highlights of what I could see is political will, financing, pooling of resources, getting to virtually all parts of the value chain. Hugh, we are getting out of time. A couple of minutes. India is going through energy transitions, both in terms of the use of consumption pattern of energy, and also insofar as the markets for energy is concerned. What are the two things that you would recommend India should do at the policy making state, based on your experience in UK and also many other countries that you have served in? You.
I think there has to be a commitment by government from a policy point of view to introduce, some sort of competitive form of, of energy production. I mean, the UK has not had a state-owned electricity network, for over 20 years, and it's opened the market up to entrepreneurs and investors. We've talked extensively about the requirements for finance. There's no question about it. Energy efficiency, measures is definitely financeable, because they can tend to be easily measured over a period of payback within 3 to 4 years. That's got a marked impact on, and I mean a marked impact on people's bottom line. On investing, whether you actually buy from the grid or whether you do on-site generation, utilize the heat, etc. So finance is a big side of it, but policy within government has to open the market up. India is the same. People have to be allowed to generate their own power, or have localized grid networks, private wires, etc., to introduce a bit of competition and real incentive. Because what drives renewable energy and energy efficiency is its ability to, not only its impact it has on the environment, but also its impact it has on individual companies' bottom line. If they can see a genuine savings. You mentioned earlier about how do we take energy efficiency from the shop floor to the boardroom? The boardroom itself should be taking energy efficiency down to the shop floor, because they should be looking at the power usage, the cost of power, and how they can do it cheaper, better, and more efficient. So policy is a big thing in India for to change it. You also need to understand, for certainly in my business, in the gas engine business, it's all about the spread. There's no point in spending an absolute, a small fortune on having gas engines and gas facilities to convert gas into electricity when the electricity prices to the grid are so cheap that it's not economical to do it. They're always referred to as the spark spread, the difference between the gas prices and the electricity prices. So we have to make sure we get the balance right on the spark spread side of it as well. And Surab, you and I know we've spoke extensively about the mechanisms in India, and there are areas of India where what do you call it, gas is at a price and power is at a price where it actually works. But it's very important to maintain that balance in order to, certainly in my business, to encourage the utilisation of efficient energy solutions from gas,
Thank you, Hugh. And this brings me to the end of this wonderful discussion that we had. Let me thank more than 1,300 people who watched this panel of experts telling about what the pandemic has forced us to do. Very happy to see the kind of renewed commitment to energy efficiency, renewable energy and energy services as we move forward. Gas, renewable energy will remain a focus in the future. I'm just trying to collect all the thoughts put together. There is no one size fit that as far as energy efficiency is concerned. There needs to be a larger capacity building efforts, project development efforts. So let me, at this juncture, thank all my expert panelists for taking time out. More than 1,300 people who watched this live. This will also, the recording of this session will also be available on YouTube channels, and we'll inform through our respective Twitter handles where it is from. We have a large set of questions which we unfortunately cannot take because of the lack of time. We will, in consultation with the experts, put together their responses and also send it out either through the Twitter page, or if we have the email address, we'll be happy to mail it directly to the person. But let me once again thank everyone for being present here. I would like to thank His Excellency, the Director General of RAK Municipal Body, for inaugurating and laying out a vision. Your Excellency Al Jassim for an excellent thoughts on variety of subjects. Andrea and Hugh for your expertise in the areas of energy efficiency, clean energy. So with this, let me close the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Take care all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being part of this, sir.